exciting first game for sure, but we want to take a chance immediately to look at picks and bans and look at the composition. So we're set up. Two very different compositions, two very different goals here, Deficio.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons this game was actually very exciting, because Giants, you know, they want to play 1-3, want to play push, they want to snowball early game, and then you see Vitality on the other side. They want to play like super slow and steady. They want to just have like this team fighting calm with a ton of engages, big tanks with the Gragas jungle in the front. And we got to see both teams actually succeed at different things in the game. But sadly, in the end for Vitality, obviously Giants do.
Yeah, well, let's take a chance now to look at our first replay. We'll bring it up now. This is kind of where the snowball in the early game started up for Giants. We look at it, of course, really aggressive play coming in for Giants, but what can Nukeduck really do here?
Well, the problem for Nukeduck is he's not expecting the very early gank coming in, so he doesn't have a ward in his side brushes, and that's why he has to stand in the middle of the lane. So as soon as the gank happens, Memento jumps in over the wall. Nukeduck couldn't stand to either side. Normally what will happen, like 3 minutes, is you ward your side brush, either one as a mid laner, and you play to that side, because that's where you have your vision. So if the enemy jungler comes from the other side, you have enough time to kind of step out, flash away. When you have to stand in the middle and the jungler can just jump the wall and get to you, well, then suddenly you can't get out because the other guy can also flash after you, which is exactly what happened. And this was a perfect start for Giants.
Well, but at the end of the day, that wasn't, I feel like, the really big breaking point, right? He got a Sapphire Crystal, he's still going even in lane. The Ahri having that wasn't the big deal, but when we look at our second replay, when we bring this up, this is where things really went wrong for Vitality in the early game. Deficio, you were harping on this one during the game. Why don't you break it down?
Well, this is where I think we can also use a little drawing tool here, because it's very interesting how the communication between lanes is just not good enough if you look at like Vitality. So this move here is Hikyu and Hostin leaving the bottom lane in full vision. They leave it. And now when we pause this replay here with Vitality vision, what we have to notice is, obviously we saw Giants bot lane move. So we know they're like around here right now. The vision for Joko is basically 0 when you look at the river. His bot lane should have communicated. The guys have left the bottom side. They can either have gone back to base or walk up towards mid lane. There's even a ward right there to spot if they're coming. So Joko knows they can only really be here, taking like a path that looks somewhat like this in towards the mid lane. He thinks he can place a ward in this little brush just in time, but it's such a greedy play and unnecessary. So once we now roll the clip, we're gonna notice how Joko walks into obviously 2 guys who's sitting there just catching him. And these are the kind of plays we see from bottom teams quite a few times, where the communication between lanes is just not good enough. And then suddenly you think you can just sneak in that little ward out of vision and boom, you get punished. This results in Nukeduck dying. Mid tower went down as well. 3K goal lead for Giants, and suddenly their comp was succeeding.
But despite the mistakes coming from Vitality, when we bring up replay number 3, we can see that Giants make a few mistakes of their own. So both team comps, you know, kind of setting up, looking for their win opportunities. Yeah. Vitality do end up finding theirs in the mid game. So let's take a look at replay 3. Let's take a look at how exactly this kind of all went wrong for Giants in the mid game.
I feel like this is revenge if you are Vitality, because this time around, if we look at this, we have Cabo Shot down here. We all the way up there, yeah, you can click inform. We got Knight and we have Nukeduck. So Nukeduck has now left his side lane. He's not going to try and hold it, because if you are Vitality, you want to fight. You want to, you know, force disengage. So we have Cabo Shot moving this way down. Obviously, if you can draw over there, we get the Orianna moving down as well. And then you have these 3 guys in the mid lane who wants to engage up here at the moment. And this is perfect. And this is where now Giants and their communication breaks down, because Knight should call that no one is in his lane. So you need to be careful, Orianna can roam. Shen should also be calling, Renekton is moving, watch out guys. But now that we roll the clip, you're gonna see how Giants are actually opting into this fight. Look at Hostlin. He walks in, and this despite having 2 guys from Vitality leaving side lanes. So now when the fight breaks out, once again, if you can click on Ahri up there, Knight is really far away.
Yep.
A lot of engage on the side of Vitality, and there's an 80 carry right there. This guy went for full damage, had no QSS. So what's gonna happen is, obviously, once we clear this one, we're gonna see our good friend AOD. He's gonna look at this guy and say, okay, I'm gonna go for him. He's gonna call for Cabo Shot to join him, and also Steelback is gonna fire an arrow on this guy. And when there's no QSS, you're not gonna survive. And when your main damage dealer is gone, once you roll the clip, you're gonna see there's no Ahri right here, full engage. flash ulti onto Hikyu, arrow, capo shot, this AD carry is gone, and then the fight is over, and this resulted in a Baron, and Vitality were back in the game.
And this is where we thought Vitality would just win the game, but unfortunately the game goes so late, the game comes down to one final fight. We look at that fight now, we'll just roll through it as normal and kind of talk over it, because this is it. When you get to late in the game, it doesn't matter if both teams are relatively even. If you lose a fight,
and when
you get caught out.
Sadly, the guy we actually said were the most consistent member, the kind of the rock on Vitality, got caught a few times. This was the most crucial moment of the game where he obviously gets caught. He ends up dying very early on, and Vitality, where before we saw them kind of get the proper engage in, they moved in before Knight was there. This time around, it was them getting caught out. Giants execute really, really well. I think this is a game where you can be very negative and say, ooh, there were some mistakes from both teams, but I also think we have to be very positive in how teams were succeeding at different stages. Early on, Giants were setting up really good picks to get an early advantage. Then Vitality set up really good team fights and actually managed to win these fights and take a Baron and force multiple engages later on. And then in the end, Knight, of course, with the big outplay, I think he was fantastic in this game, on this hour here, and he really set up his team to succeed.